Oh, hello. Today we are going to revisit some 5-star predictions I made in 2019 and sneak in a 2020 5-star prediction. We're gonna take a slightly different approach this time around because I enjoy doing these. Like, this is a fun video to do. It's a fun project. I like watching these, and I think my strategy that I've been employing up till this moment is not making it so that I can get to these quickly. That's probably too much like inside baseball. Anyway, all that to say, we're gonna take a slightly different approach, but first we're gonna see how I did on my last round of predictions. So I picked 10 books that I thought were potential books that I may give 5 stars to, like if I were guessing from my TBR which ones I thought were ripe to become a new all-time favorite, which is how I define a 5-star book. So let's talk about what those were and how good I am at calling my shots. Spoilers, not that great? I don't know. I feel like that's usually the conclusion from these videos, is people are like, oh, I'm not all that great at picking what I'm gonna give a 5-star to, but anyway, let's get into the ones that we picked last time. So last time our guesses were Slouching Towards Bethlehem by Joan Didion, North and South from Elizabeth Gaskell, A Room of One's Own from Virginia Woolf, Difficult Women by Roxane Gay, Jane Doe from Victoria Helen Stone, Circe from Madeline Miller, Maurice from E.M. Forster, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, Normal People from Sally Rooney, and Cold Comfort Farm from Stella Gibbons. So of those 10, I have read 7 of them. 3 that I have not yet read are Tenant of Wildfell Hall, Maurice, and Circe. So these 3 we'll roll forward, but we'll just put those to the side. So of the 10, I've read 7. Of those 7 that I have read, I have 1 5-star, I have 1 DNF, and I gave the rest of them 4 stars. So I guess the takeaway is and I think this was my takeaway last time too, decently okay at picking books that I know I'm gonna like, but in terms of like calling an all-time favorite, maybe I'm not excellent at it, because the only book of these that I have given a 5-star to was my one like sort of wild card pick of the bunch, and that was Jane Doe by Victoria Helen Stone. This is one of my favorite books. It's 5 stars, so of all time, but also of the year for sure. So this was the only one I actually gave 5 stars to. The one that I DNF'd, which I thought was a little bit of a stretch. Like, I thought this was a book that I could either feel like meh about or maybe could love. And that was Normal People by Sally Rooney. And I DNF'd that thing within, I think, like 50 pages because the writing I could not with. Like, it just did not click for me. I know a lot of people have really enjoyed that book, so like, I think it's just, you know, your mileage may vary. It's a taste thing. Writing and writing style tends to be like one of the number one things that will make me bail on a book, because like, if I don't like the voice of the author in my head as I'm reading, that is very hard for me to overcome. So I did give up on Normal People. I DNF'd it very quickly. So I had 1 very high, 1 very low, but literally every other book that I read for this, I gave 4 stars to. So that was Cold Comfort Farm, Slouching Towards Bethlehem, Difficult Women, A Room of One's Own, and North and South. And I will say, I'm actually pretty surprised. Like, okay, the reason I'm surprised that none of those 5 got a 5-star. Cold Comfort Farm, I didn't totally know what I was getting into, but I just, based on what I knew about it, I was pretty sure it was a book I was gonna vibe with, and I did. I just wouldn't say it's like an all-time favorite. Difficult Women, I absolutely love Roxane Gay. Like, if I had to pick, well, I mean, I always say Alona Andrews is my favorite currently writing author, but I would say Roxane Gay is probably, I think she's just not wrote enough for me to feel like, I guess, wholly confident in that, but I probably would say she's my other favorite currently writing author. And I absolutely loved Aidi. I've really enjoyed or loved everything I've read from her. And I did really enjoy Difficult Women, but I thought that was a high contender to get 5 stars. So I'm a little surprised that I didn't connect more with it. It's still really good. Like, I feel the need to say about all of these, I still really liked all of these. It just wasn't an all-time favorite. So that was surprising. A Room of One's Own, I knew was a classic, like a feminist classic. And I really like Virginia Woolf. Like Mrs. Dalloway, I would probably call a 5-star book for me. So yeah, I guess maybe not wholly shocked by this, but I thought this had a very strong chance of becoming an all-time favorite. Pretty surprised that this wasn't a 5-star. I wonder, this is a book I see myself rereading at some point, and I think it's one that if I was able to reread, especially now that I know kind of the story already, and reread in a shorter amount of time, I think that this might be one that I end up bumping up over time, but for now, I would give it 4 stars. So that surprised me because I thought this was a shoo-in. And then Slouching Towards Bethlehem was a little bit of a stretch one for me. I wasn't sure because I really did not enjoy The Year of Magical Thinking. So I wasn't sure how I would do with her in more kind of varied essay form. And I really, really enjoyed this one. In fact, I feel like this may need to be a 4.5. No, I don't think it's quite. I think it is a 4-star, but it's one I would definitely recommend. It's one that has some pieces in it that are iconic that I already knew about and are indeed iconic. And then some, you know, kind of surprise essays in here that I hadn't heard about as much and did really enjoy. So, you know, I think all of those 5 that I gave 4 stars to, like, they got 4 stars because I enjoyed them. They just weren't 5 stars. So in terms of how I did, of my 10 that I guessed, I read 7. Of those 7, only 1 was actually 5 stars. My average star rating for those 7 was 3.57 stars. If I exclude the DNF, which I consider to be a 0 star, I think that bumped it up to like a 4.1 or 2, something like that. So, you know, not killing it with this project, but you know, still picking books that I'm enjoying. So with that in mind, I do want to go ahead and pick a new crop of 5-star predictions from my TBR. And I do have a slightly different strategy this time around. So let's talk about that. So this time around, I didn't give myself a set number I was going to pick. I said no more than 10, but I didn't give myself a set number. So I ended up with 9 picks. 3 of them I am rolling over because I still think, I think Circe is a little bit of a stretch guess because I know everybody else absolutely loved this book. So that's why I think it has potential that I would also absolutely love it. Historical fiction hasn't been my go-to genre in the last few years. So that's the reason I think of it as a little bit of a stretch, because while I do enjoy historical fiction and I really enjoyed it in my 20s, it's not been as much of a go-to, so for that reason I think of it as a little bit of a stretch, but this one I still think could be 5 stars. I have read and enjoyed both A Room with a View and Howard's End from E.M. Forster, and Howard's End in particular, I read, I guess last year. I read that one last year in 2019, and it made me really curious about him anew, just based on sort of the like thematic or authorial sensibilities in that book. And this, I think, definitely has a potential because it is a queer love story in a classic to be something that really works for me. So I still think that this has a solid 5-star chance for it. And my first outing with Anne Bronte, I have faith and I think that this very well could be a 5-star. So I'm betting on a Bronte and I feel like that's a pretty solid bet. So I am gonna stick with all 3 of these as 5-star predictions. And then I have 6 other books on my TBR that I think could be 5-star books for me. And I tried to pick ones that I know that I have a plan already to read, or I have like an imminent interest in getting to in the next little bit. I think because some of the ones I've been picking are like bigger books, you know, just more, it's like more work to get through classic for me usually than it is some of the other stuff that I read. So I wanted to pick things that I was pretty sure I'm gonna get to here in the next 6 to 12 months and things that are like easy to slot in. So with that, I did come up with 6 more. So the one that I don't have in physical form because I have it in audio and because it's going to be one of my main tent poles for Nonfiction November is Black Reconstruction in America by W.E.B. Du Bois. And I feel actually pretty darn confident this is going to get 5 stars for me. So this is a classic piece of nonfiction, of like historical nonfiction that W.E.B. Du Bois wrote, I believe in the 30s. And at that point, Black Reconstruction after the Civil War here in the US was still within living memory, and it really is sort of the classic seminal text in that period of American history in a lot of ways. It's referenced so often in other nonfiction I read, and I've heard excerpts of it. I'm really excited about it. Like, I'm feeling pretty confident that it's gonna be one that I absolutely love. So I feel pretty good about that one. I'm pretty strong in that as a 5-star. The other ones I have reasons, and I will share those reasons why I think they could be 5 stars, but I think all of these remaining ones are somewhat stretch. Like, I don't know that they're going to be 5-star, but I can see a world in which they could be. So they're a little riskier. And I don't know, like, it kind of, my like tried and true method of picking books I'm pretty sure I'm gonna love doesn't seem to be going all that well. So, like, why not branch out a little bit? Okay, so first, I'm gonna guess that The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is a new release from her this year, and it's the first in a series, could be a 5-star pick for me because her series, The Naturals, is my all-time favorite YA mystery series. Like, that series is unquestionably a 5-star, and there's at least 1 or 2 books in there I would consider to be 5 stars. So I have a good track record with this author, and the premise of this has been described as The Westing Game meets Knives Out, and those are 2 existing properties or works that I absolutely love from an author I really love. So I'm feeling like this definitely has a strong 5-star potential for it. Then I'm gonna say another mystery, and this is a classic mystery, The Nine Tailors from Dorothy L. Sayers. The reason I'm guessing this one is because it is, to my understanding, because this is I've read about half of the Lord Peter Wimsey at some point in my 20s, but I don't really remember them all that well, aside from the ones that I absolutely loved, which were Gaudy Night and Busman's Honeymoon. The others I'm a little fuzzy on. This is one I have not yet read from that series, and it is, to my understanding, some kind of isolated closed circle mystery or isolated closed circle mystery adjacent. Like, I believe that this is somewhat within this trope that I absolutely love from a classic Golden Age detective fiction author who I also really love. So I think this one, like, Lord Peter Wimsey is a little hit or miss for me. So from that sense, I think it's a little bit of a risky bet, but I think that this has definitely potential because it's an author and a trope that I enjoy so much. Then this next one is purely based on gut feel and hype so far for this relatively new release. And that is Ilazzo, I believe is how you say this, by Darcy Littlebadger. This, I've heard such good reviews so far. Frankly, the cover art is communicating to me a vibe that I'm very into. This setup is something that I really love in fantasy, which is a type of urban fantasy using, it's based in some like indigenous traditions to draw from its magic, which tends to be something that I'm really into. And I just have a good feeling about this one. Like, for whatever reason, I think that this is a book that I'm really gonna love. So very little concrete to go on there, but just a guess. Another YA one that is related to the earlier discussion of Jennifer Lynn Barnes is that Jennifer Lynn Barnes on Twitter said that A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson is like her go-to recommendation now if you're looking for something like the Natural series that she published previously. And as I mentioned, that is my favorite YA mystery series. So if the author of it tells me that this is a very similar book or project, that makes me feel really optimistic that this could be something that I absolutely adore. So for that reason, I'm gonna guess this could be 5 stars. And then last, another kind of like, I don't know what's gonna happen with this one, is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. So I read my first Ruth Ware this year. I read One by One, and I gave that 4.5 stars because I thought that it was a really well executed version of a modern isolated closed circle mystery. I think other people who didn't like it, a lot of what they've said is that they didn't like it because it wasn't like fast-paced enough or thrilling enough, but I don't want that trope to necessarily be super heavy on thriller. I want it to be more mystery. And the book that I've seen similar responses to, and is also an isolated closed circle mystery from her, is The Woman in Cabin 10. So this is the book that really put her on the map, and I've seen very polarized reviews of it. So I'm gonna guess, because I did enjoy One by One so much, that I'm also going to like how she does that trope in this book. And she's definitely, I've seen interviews with her, she's very like into Christie. So that also gives me hope in terms of, I think she's coming from a similar place in terms of her love of mystery as I am. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But for now, I'm gonna guess that this possibly could also be a 5-star book. So those are my predictions. And I think because I picked things that are a little easier to get to in the mix here, I am hopeful that I can get through this a little quicker in between now and 2021, and we can do this all over again and see if once again I'm terrible at this, or like not. I mean, I'm picking books I like, but I'm not necessarily that great at picking 5-star books or guessing what's going to actually be a 5-star book. So we'll see if that's true again, or if I improve this next round. So I think that will do it for this video. Let me know what you thought of any of these books that we talked about today. If you have any thoughts about how well I've done at guessing my next batch of 5-star books, let me know any of that in the comments down below. And yeah, I think that will do it for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. That will do it for me for today. Hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!